Alright, for this tutorial I'm going to go over how to create a new image dialog box and understanding that dialog box, how to use the paintbrush tool and a few different options that are within that tool. To start off, make sure you open up Photoshop and you have the correct version. Right now I'm using Adobe Photoshop 2021. Alright, once I have it open, instead of clicking File and Open, which we normally do with our projects, we're going to click on File and then New. Then this is the dialog box that we're talking about in this tutorial. The first thing I want to do is change it from Untitled 1 to whatever I want to name it. I'll just call this Test. And then the width and height, we can change that. And this is figured out in inches. If we want to do it by centimeters or pixels, we could change those options as well. We're going to stick with inches. The width is 10 and the height is 8 inches. And we could change that to be opposite so that the width is 8 inches and the height is 10 inches. Just basically changes this from portrait to landscape. We'll stick with landscape. And then for resolution, if I'm preparing this image or this board for printing, I would choose 300 pixels per inch. Or if I was doing this for the web, I would change it to 72 pixels per inch. We're going to just set it up so it's at 300 pixels per inch. And then I could change the color mode if I wanted to, and I could get into some of these other features. But for now, we're not going to talk about these other features. Just make sure you have a canvas that is 10 by 8 in inches and a resolution of 300. I'll click Create. All right, now this is my board. If I want to zoom in just a little bit so it fills as much space as possible, I'll press Command 0. Remember, you can press Command plus to zoom in. You can press Command minus to zoom out. If you want to fill the space, Command 0. Alright, so I've got my artboard. Now let's talk about the paintbrush tool. On this left side, we've got a whole bunch of tools, and we'll talk about more of them. But this one, called the brush tool, I'm going to click on that, and then I can choose the type of brush I want to use. So I could have a brush with soft edges, with one that looks kind of like a sponge with hard edges, and so on. I'm just going to choose the one with hard edges. And then now I can mark, and awesome, it's got nice defined edges there. I could also soften the edges by clicking on that little icon up there in the top and then going to where it says hardness, change that to 0. And now when I mark, you can see the edges are soft. It's a gradual gradient where it goes from light to dark. Anyway, so there's more features in there. I could click this right here. It's a little, looks like a folder, the brush on it. If I click on that, I can also change the brush. So if I click, let's say I want to try that one, right? It does just a different brush style. This one, right? And maybe you're going for certain effects. You're like, oh, I'm gonna just, it looks like splatter paint, that sort of thing. You could do that. You could alter directions. You could flip it. This stuff I'm not going to go into too much detail, but feel free to play around with that a little bit. I want to go back to my, regular brush. All right. So you can change the softness of it. There's some other things you can do up here. We're not going to cover all those in detail. One I would like to talk about is the opacity. Maybe you want it to be somewhat see-through. You could change that to say 26% or so. And then I'm going to use the bracket keys. This is another thing that you'll want to know where they're at if you haven't. Above the return key, you can click the right bracket key to make the circle or the brush size bigger, or the left bracket key to make it smaller. And now I've changed the opacity to 26%. That means it's going to be 74% see-through, right? So you can see that now as I use the brush, it's somewhat see-through. If I go over the same area, it's going to darken the first area because all of these are a little bit see-through, right? And you keep going until eventually it goes to the solid color. All right, so those are some things about the brushes. Now the other thing I said I want to talk about is the colors. So if I want to change this color, I can click on this tool in the bottom left. You'll notice it has a black and a white. Yours might default to black and white. But anyway, if you click on that, it brings up this color picker. Now I can choose the actual color by using this color slider. Let's say I wanted an orange. Now I've changed that color slider. Then I can move around here to change the tone of that orange. Once I've got the tone I want, I click OK, and so now I'm doing this like orangish color. And you'll see as you overlap. I'm going to change the opacity now, and a shortcut for opacity, I could press 1 for 10%, 4 for 40%, or 0 for 100%. So I'm going to put it back to 0, 100%, and now it's a solid color. Now if I wanted to use this background color, I can click this little arrow thing right here. So now I'm going to the top color, I can click the arrow thing again, and now I'm to that bottom color. If I want to change, let's say I wanted that, I don't like that brownish color, so I'm going to change it. Click on that, brings up the color picker. I can choose a different color, and then click OK, and then alright, so now I'm working with these two colors. The shortcut to switch between those two colors quite quickly is the letter X. So I'm going with one color, press X, switches to the other color, press X, goes back to the previous, X, next one, and so on. So you get the idea. You can change the colors there. Let me see, anything else I want to talk about here? If you have a color in your scene that you're like, oh, I really like this. Maybe you really like this like brownish turquoise color. If you did, if you click on it, you'll notice my cursor, you'll notice my cursor changes to an eyedropper tool. If I click on it, it takes me to that exact color, and so I can click OK. So now that color I clicked on is exactly the same. Right? So if you have like a sunset or of an image and you just really like a certain color in that image, you can use the eyedropper tool once you're in here to say, oh, I really like that color. Click on it, and then now you can paint with that exact color. All right, I think that's all I want to talk about with these tools. Try them out, practice them, try and make an image, alter the opacity, experiment with other tools that you thought might be interesting, and then let me know if you have questions as you're doing that.